In this week's episode, we talk about debt, we talk about letterbox drops, and I ask you for a favor. Hi and welcome to episode 42 of Business Greenhouse TV. You know, this week, this is going to be the share show. Would you do me a massive favor and share out this video? You know, whether you're on YouTube right now, you can grab the link and maybe forward it to some friends. Or if you're on Facebook, just literally hit the share button. You know, nothing gets me more buzzed than when we have new people join our tribe and get amongst our community and share their wins. And my whole journey here in doing all of this and flying all around the country is to build a large group of Christian entrepreneurs who we can start to use to fund projects and have influence. And that's going to take a big number. So call me greedy, but nothing gets me more excited than when we share these shows and more people, your friends, you know, get to tap into these trainings and we build some common language and then we can just go on and have the effect and use our faith and change culture from the top down. So would you do me a favor and would you please share this show with as many people as you possibly can? That would mean the world to me if you would do that. All right, let's get into this week's show.
Stephen Croxley asks, in order to lower our purchasing costs, we need to invest in importing at least 2 by 20 feet containers, which is an investment of $10,000 to $40,000. How should we fund this?
Stephen, great business strategy. You know, obviously you've got by without needing to import them up to this point, but your motivation here is to buy bulk, therefore get more margin on the product and on the sale. So I get it, fantastic strategy. I'm going to answer this kind of like in a sliding scale because to me there isn't just one answer. Everybody would have a different way of doing this or different things would show up, therefore we would handle it differently. So obviously the most obvious answer is to go get a loan. And I'm going to park that one last and deal with some others first and foremost. You know, the short answer, my first answer to any of this, anything to do with funding ever, actually, is sales. The first place we've got to look is we've got to do this out of sales revenue if we can, okay? So what does that look like for you? Maybe that is, you know, that you do have a stockpile of cash and you can go and use that. Or, you know, is there a bunch of debtors that you've got that you're not collecting from? Go and get their money. Or do you have a bunch of old stock that you can just you know, sell it for what you bought it for, turn it back into liquid cash and go and do the importing? If not, can you do a 1 month massive promo to build your revenue, make it really spike so that you've got that money to go and, you know, to go and make this purchase? That's the first place I always look because it's the cheapest and it proves that the business is strong. Okay, so you're proving a concept at the same time as you know, having the money to import these things. If that's exhausted and that's not even an option, then the next place that we would typically go to is friends, fools, and family. You know, these loans are typically a little bit more flexible. You know, the Bible tells us the borrower is slave to the lender. So, you know, the further up the institutional chain that you go, the more you are a slave. So friends, fools, and families is a great place to go, okay? And what that means is you go to your family and friends and you just say, listen, this is what I want. It's a very short-term loan. And I'm going to, you know, this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring it in. We will have turned this 20-foot container into cash by this many months in the future, and I'm going to give you back like this. And so then document all that as you should and as you would, and then go and execute on that. Lastly, I would say using the bank, and I am anti-debt personally. I'm not a fan of debt. I think personally we should never have debt. Is it okay to have debt in a business? It's not ideal, but it's okay for a strategy like this. So a lot of people come to me and say, you know, I want to get an overdraft. And when I dig a bit deeper, it's because there's fundamentally a problem with the business. And all the overdraft's going to do is buy time and the business is still bleeding. Then in 3 months' time, it's just bleeding with a bigger debt. In this particular case, this is a short-term strategy, okay, to be able to make more margin. So it's the time that I would consider using debt and using it wisely. Here's my concern. It's about discipline. If you're going to go to a bank or you're going to go to an institution and borrow $40,000, I would take a very short-term payment schedule on that, and I would make sure that I paid them back out of the profit of that container as much as I possibly could. And then I pay them back, go to zero. You've probably, without knowing the actual margins of your business, but reading through the lines about what you've told me, you've probably only got to do a 40-foot container 2, maybe 3 times before the payoff from that gives you the buffer in cash to never have to go and do funding again, because it'll produce you the margin that you'll be able to keep. You better go and buy your own container and never have to go back to a bank. So that's got to be the goal. The problem is that if you go to the bank, get $40,000, take it over 2 years, make all the money from the shipping container, forget about this conversation, and you find yourself upgrading your car and buying a whole bunch of new things and, change it, then you're just going to go backwards. If we have an issue with debt and we've been typically bad with debt, then this is probably not going to help you as a strategy. Unless you take a very short time frame on the lending. Take the loan, do the deal, and pay it back straight away. It's not a strategy for everybody because the minute you add debt to anything, the risk profile goes through the roof. More than society lets on. Society's like, just pay for it later. No, it's a bad strategy, because yes, you're picking up margin by bringing it in from overseas, but you're losing some margin by paying interest on being able to do the strategy. Okay, so we have to look at those two numbers. I'm sure you would be better off with the margin you're picking up versus the loan payment, but I would always profile those numbers. Here's how I would look at it in your scenario. Let's say you did have to go to a bank. What I would do, and I'll use $40,000 because that was the upper limit of your question. I would go, okay, what's my debtors? I'm really going to hassle my old debtors and get my money in faster, and that might be $4,000. Great. I'm going to look at my old products that aren't moving and then really quickly cash flow them and turn them into just a massive 7-day sale and get those out of the door. And maybe that's 7,000. Well, now I've got 11, all right? So I don't go to the bank for 40, okay? I go to the bank for 29 and keep it tight, because every time you borrow, you pay more interest. Every time you borrow, you add a whole bunch of risk. And then you can pay that back a lot quicker, reducing your debt profile that way. So it would be the last place I would go. I would always try and fix every debt issue with sales and revenue first. But somewhere along there, it can be a good strategy as long as you have a very high discipline with debt.
George Lou asks, are letterbox drops still effective in this day and age?
George, no, they're not. And they haven't been for a long, long time. Very occasionally our clients go and do letterbox drops and they'll get lucky. They get a sale, they get lucky. They're like, these things work. And then do it again and again and again and it never works. The short answer is no. The world's moved on. It's 2017. And see, what you got to look at is where are people spending their time? There would have been a time, 15, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago when life wasn't as hectic for everybody. And we did less in a day, which meant we had more discretionary time to grab all our stuff from the mailbox, make a cuppa, and sit and thumb through it. No one anymore. We have thousands of people in our seminars all around the country, and I often ask the question of how many people, when we teach on direct mail, how many people are reading it, and it's 0. No one reads it anymore. We grab the mail, we check if there's any, letters actually addressed to us from, the telco and the electricity provider. We take those out, the rest go in the wheelie bin, and they don't even get the dignity of the light of day ever again. If you're a multinational, if you're a national company, Coles, Woolies, those guys, they can do letterbox drops because they can do every home in Australia, which then you can get a 0.1% return and actually have a tangible number. And then also they put so many lost leaders to attract you into the store so that you buy other stuff. It works for that really high end of town. It doesn't work for small to medium businesses. People have moved on. It's a cheap strategy to do for a reason, okay? Because it's a bad strategy and it's not a very creative one. But even though it's cheap, let's say it costs you $500 to go and drop some flyers into the surrounding 7 suburbs. That's $500 that could be deployed into Google AdWords right now of people that are looking for your products right now, or Facebook marketing or something like that, where people's actually spending their time looking at these platforms, looking to buy, okay? It's a no-brainer. Unfortunately, leaflet drops are so 2001. Let's go to Word of the Week. All right, now before we go here, did I tell you this is the share show? I need you to share this up. I want your friends, your colleagues, the people you know to also be tuning into this show on a weekly basis, because that's the oxygen that keeps me wanting to do this. I want to keep increasing our reach and increasing our people. So just simply hit share or grab the URL and send it out. But it would mean the world to me if you would jump into the comments and tag somebody, or literally just hit share, and that'll go onto your Facebook that you shared it, and other people will see it, and hopefully they'll enjoy what they're seeing, get some value, and they can follow on as well. So if you do that for me, that would be just the world's biggest blessing. Proverbs 25:21. It goes like this. Not one that we would talk about particularly, but that's why I want to go there. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing this, it's heaping burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. You know, it's such a cutthroat business world. It's like dog eat dog, hostile takeovers, crushing the competitor. That's not the Lord's way. The Lord created a system whereby we all should be preferring others over ourselves. And if everybody preferred everybody else, then everybody would win. This spirit of competition that has crept in, we have to deal with right away. It's very carnal to see the person down the road in your industry as your competitor. Under kingdom business, they're not your competitor. They're a fellow that's loved just as much by God as we are. And we have to understand that it's not a set amount. There's not an X amount of opportunity that you need to divide amongst everybody. Now, I know some of you are like, yeah, great, Wes, but I'm a businessman. Yeah, great. So you'll just go and operate carnally and you'll reap carnally. You'll get whatever is available in the marketplace. I'm suggesting that when you pursue the other people in your industry as somebody you could have influence with, or somebody that could potentially be a friend, or where you could cooperate together in co-opetition, not competition, the whole world opens up literally, because we're not talking about an earthly strategy. We're talking about a supernatural one. We're talking about the Lord looking down and going, this person has actually caught abundance, and now I'm going to bring opportunity that never would have been there any other way. Okay? So it's a very different way of thinking. I literally know of stories of our clients who have taken this seriously and gone and had great conversations with ungodly competitors in their industry and helped them out and shown them some tricks. And as they've prospered, they've confided in our clients, and the Lord has brought opportunity to them, new areas for their business, new angles, and they're prospering. And you would think they would lose, but they don't. So here's an interesting part to the story. It says, if your enemy's hungry, give him food to eat. It doesn't say, give him every single bit of food you have in your house, okay? You don't have to go to your competitors and give them all your IP, but you do need to treat them as wonderful people and help them out, okay? This competition, this competitive spirit that's obviously outside of the faith, but also quite largely inside of the faith, is not going to help anybody. We've got to start to view the people that are typically in competition with us as our brothers and sisters. And like Cain and Abel ask, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. All right. So we've got to get away from this. And when they ask and when they need help and when they're going through a rough patch, why don't you just test this process and reach out to them and see if you can, maybe it's an encouraging word, maybe it's some strategy, maybe they've got more clients than you could handle right now, and so you're going to give some to somebody who's struggling, and watch what the Lord does, because as Proverbs says, the Lord will add the favor. By the way, this is the share show. As I've said before, would you do me the massive honor? If you found this valuable, if you found any of our TV shows valuable, then just simply hit share, send it out to your friends, and that would mean the world to me. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.